How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines, welcome back to Plazas and Promenades, and welcome back to the city of Nerdholm. In the last episode, we built Vermont District, which is a new European-style district with a modern heart. We have a bus hub right at the center of it that's getting used quite a bit. There's about 1,000 people using the buses to get all across Nerdholm, and I adore how this turned out. But I might have an idea for how we can make this better than it already is. But before we get to that, we can't ignore Smith Square, which is this modern IT cluster next to Vermont District. And at the heart of that, we have this big blue pickle. We have the Gherkin, which is honestly, it's not a beautiful building necessarily, but there's something about it that I find charming, and I think it's just perfect to be the heart of this really modern district. And of course, you know me, I love the contrast between the white walls and glass and steel of the skyscrapers when compared to the warmer tones of the European buildings just across the street. And just for the sake of transparency, I've also expanded Willow Hills, which is our industrial space down by the water. It now has a bridge going over the avenue that comes off of the highway. I did this because I thought it looked interesting and because I'm gearing up to get rid of our original industrial district, and so Willow Hills is going to have to pick up that load and deal with an increased demand for goods, which is probably going to affect traffic a little bit negatively, but we can hopefully deal with that. Although not today, because I have a better idea for what we can do today. But before we get to my big plan, I did mention that I have an idea for how we can make Vermont District right here even better than it already is. And when I say I have an idea, I can't really take credit for this. This is something I saw in the comments on the last episode of this series. So if you ever have any suggestions, any ideas, anything you think would be really cool for Nerdholm, do... Why did I say Nerdholm really weird like that? Do leave it in the comments below. I do read them, I do check them out, and I love seeing the feedback and all the ideas for this city. Now, essentially, the idea is to put some kind of metro hub in here as well, right opposite the bus station. And specifically, the comment, I can't remember who it was, but they very specifically mentioned using this right here, the Metro Plaza Station, which, if you're not familiar with this, it is from one of the content creator packs. It's from the Train Stations content creator pack by Bad Peanuts. And as you can see, it has 5 different lines coming in here. It has a whole bunch of platforms at different heights, and it just looks fantastic. And I wouldn't say it looks ultra modern, but to be fair, nothing over here necessarily looks ultra modern, but it does obviously contrast the European buildings. So we're now faced with a bit of a dilemma, because where does this go? And like I said, I want to put it in front of the bus station. So essentially, what I'm going to have to do is completely rebuild this central space. So we're going to get started by removing the office zoning that we have right here. And I know what you're thinking, didn't I just build all this and place all this? I did. This isn't the focus of today's video. This is a little side project that I wanted to get done right at the start here. So we'll take those buildings out, and we're going to use Move It. We're going to use the Marquee tool, and we are going to be selecting props, we're going to be selecting nodes, and we're going to be selecting trees. And then I want to go in and say we're only selecting, I guess, fences for now when it comes to the nodes. Because what I want to do is go in and select all of this, and we're going to delete all of that. And then what I need to do is get rid of all these little paths, and I need to pause and get rid of all these roads, and then upgrade these guys into bus lanes. So we'll go into the roads, we'll go into pedestrian, we'll go to cobblestone, and we'll get our bus roads. We want to make sure zoning is forced, and we want to make sure collisions are off, which they are. And so we upgrade you, and upgrade you. And so now, if we also go and just upgrade these guys to get some zoning on it, we have a way for the buses to still get in here and still function, which is perfect. And we can also go and change out these roads so we have a much more pedestrianized center of Vermont District. And I think that looks pretty good. So now, essentially, all I need to do is grab this guy. And here's the annoying part. It's not going to go central. It doesn't go central. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to place some walls. And I went to the Steam Workshop, just by the way, and I got this. The Concrete Retaining Wall Network. This is the network that I was talking about in the last episode. I also realized I can let the game run in the background here. This can be lowered, that's the wrong one. This can be lowered into the ground and can look like curbs, and I just love it. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I did also get some other ones as well. These rail yard retaining walls, some of them have tunnels and things like that. I don't necessarily know how these work, I'm going to be quite honest with you, but I'm sure we can figure that out. I don't actually know what this is at all. Let's elevate it and take a look. It is, oh, it's a tunnel. Yeah, that makes sense. So we could do some stuff with tunnels if we really wanted to, but obviously right now we're not going to be doing that. We're focusing on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this concrete retaining wall and I'm going to go ahead and put it, well, actually, I need to figure out how this gets measured. So let's actually put you right there. And I'm going to put a retaining wall, let's say, right about here. And I'm going to put one right about here. And then what I can do is use those as guides with Move It to just sort of shuffle this over until it looks roughly central, which I think that more or less does. And I'm also realizing I kind of need to flatten all of this space. So let's just grab all of this, all of those nodes, and then we want to just level them pretty much to that height, I think. In fact, maybe we just level them to the height of the bus station there. So everything's now nice and flat. We do, I think, have a little bit of a hill here, but that's not the end of the world. And I think that's fine. So this is now central. We have these concrete retaining walls. Let's go ahead and bring them out. And we'll just fill up this space with a bunch of these guys. We're not going to go right down to here. We are going to have some buildings down here still. But we can get some detailing. That's not the way I wanted to do detailing at all. We can get some detailing around the sides of this, turn it into a nice plaza, and actually just take out these bits here, because I do want some zoning at the bottom. And so with a little bit of time, a little bit of zoning, a plaza, and some trees, we have a new metro hub right in the middle of Vermont District, which is actually quite popular. There are a lot of people that want to use this, and that's good. It means that Vermont District is once again even more connected to the rest of the city than essentially anywhere else. And this is, I think, going to be my goal with Nerdholm, is to have it just be extremely well connected. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing with this series, it won't necessarily all be on camera, but a lot of it is going to be learning how to better manage transportation networks, because I feel like in all my years of City Skylines, that's something I've never really actively tried to figure out. I usually just wing it. I usually just improvise, and I'd like to do a little bit of learning to figure out the actual the logistics and the science, I guess, behind public transport. That sounds really dorky. Like there's no way to say that and make it sound cool. But yeah, this is something I'm really pleased with. I think it looks pretty great. I thought it was a fantastic idea, and it seems as though it is being used really well. You might be wondering, by the way, what lines I've got connected to this. Essentially, I brought the blue line that runs from Cedar Hall down through Jones Park into Dale Hills. I brought it into Vermont District, and I also connected it out to Willow Hills. And then I created a purple line right here, which runs from Vermont into Primrose District and Florence, up into Sheffield. It's a very, very short line. It doesn't really go all that far at all. But the thing is, we can probably continue that line down into whatever we build down here at some point. That's why this station, even though it's not the city center, it's going to be quite important. This is going to be kind of a transport hub, and it's probably in a good spot given how close to the highway that it really is, even if it is in a pedestrianized space. Now, like I said, this isn't the main focus of today's episode, so let's turn our attention back towards, and some of you might roll your eyes about this, but I want to go look at the coastline. And the reason I want to look at the coastline is because I think this is a beautiful space. We have this beautiful coastline leading us up to the lighthouse down here, and that's something that's probably going to move, but historically it's always been in the same location if we think about the lore of Nerdholm. But I've talked about this space a few times. I think at one point I said we were going to put a university here, and I think most recently I mentioned the idea of putting a theater out here, and I feel like I'm overpronouncing theater, but I'm going to keep saying it like we're going to put a theater into into this space, and I think it's going to be amazing. I have an idea for what I think this could look like, and so we're going to get started with some move it, and we're going to be moving some trees, we're going to be moving buildings, and we're going to be moving props. The reason we're moving buildings is because these giant rocks are actually considered buildings. So what we need to do is go in and select everything in this space, and I want to select everything in this space as well. And I'm going to select everything down to about here as well. And we're going to delete all of it, because what I really want to do in here is I want to lower this space down so it's about here, to be quite honest. If we use the terrain editing tools, we can take a bit of a look at it, a little bit of a brush size, good strength, and a nice round brush. About that height is where I want this entire district to be, just above the water. So it's going to be much, much lower than everything we've done so far. But before we do this, well, actually, no, I don't need to do anything before this. I can lower it down right away, and then we can go and do the detailing for this little corner, which is going to need some love before we actually build all of this. But essentially, this entire space is going to be much lower than everything else, because I just think it's going to be kind of interesting. I think it's going to break up the same old that we have going across the promenade. And don't get me wrong, I love this promenade. I think it looks fantastic. I'm really, really proud of it. And the feedback I've seen on it, for the most part, has been pretty good as well. It's not the most creative thing in City Skylines, but it's mine, and that's all that matters. So, you know, I'm not trying to say it's not good enough anymore, but it could be better. And I think it could be better by contrasting it, oh, there's that word again, with a new area that's a bit lower. So now that we've got this flattened out, here's what I want to do. I want to go into the bridges and piers section. I want to get the simple city key, and I want to bring it across here, but I think before we do that, we actually need to set this to be ground level so it's not a tunnel, but we need to get ourselves some sandstone, small sandstone pedestrian streets, and I'm going to bring this over so it lines up with this avenue here on the left. And then I'm wondering if I connect the avenue or if we should use this guy. Let's take a look and see what happens if I connect the avenue. And that actually doesn't look like it's in line at all. That's a little bit worrying. Let's take you back. Let's bring you straight out. And let's bring you over, and that lines up a little bit better. So looking at that, I actually, I think the avenue might be the way to go. If we change it into this guy, ooh, yeah, no, we're gonna stick with the avenue there. Traffic can sort of go up and do its thing, and a whole lot of this needs leveled out a little bit. So let's use move it. Let's grab some nodes. We're gonna grab some road nodes, and we want to just lower this whole thing to about this height, so it's nice and level right there at the end. This space in the middle can be flattened out at some point, and honestly, we probably want to turn off the traffic lights as well. So a little giveaway sign there. We can probably set this junction up to allow traffic into the junction as well. And I think that's probably fine. So this is my thinking, right? We're going to have this key come the entire way down here. It's going to go the entire length of this road and the entire length of this road and around here. And this is going to be our entrance, because what I may have forgotten to mention about this space is that I want it to be a pedestrian zone. So it's not going to be Cedar Hole. It's going to be its own thing, but it's 100% going to be a pedestrian zone. So let's bring this guy over to here, and let's line up with, I don't know how well this is necessarily going to work, but we're going to go to right about here. We'll bring this over so it's in line. We'll bring you over so it's like that. And this can all be obviously fixed once I get it placed. But essentially, what we want to do is outline all of this space. And I think what I'm actually going to do at this end is I'm going to line it up here. So we're going to have this this key following our entry road to the district. So now that we've got this placed, let's grab all of the nodes. We can bring it all up to height, and we can get it all sorted out so it looks a little bit less ugly. And there we go. We have this giant sea wall that just hugs the city really nicely. It continues around from our promenade, and it kind of puts a nice little stop on Cedar Hall, which, looking at it, I'm very tempted to expand into this space and just get rid of all of the main roads, essentially, and upgrade all of this to just be another part of the pedestrian space. I think that might be a good idea, but that's going to be something we can do a little bit later on, because now we need to go ahead and get ourselves some pedestrian area roads, and I'm going to use bluestone because I think that's going to be interesting, and I'm going to use the large bluestone pedestrian street with trees. And before I do that, actually, I'm going to just line up a road down here, because what I actually need to do is make sure that we have zoning available, essentially right up against the key here, because that's going to be something that we're looking for, is zoning, just sort of blocking this wall a little bit. But the reason I put this road in first is because I want to go from here. I want a nice straight slope, and essentially we're going to just line this road up with that road there, and it is going to be like that. So it's going to be a beautiful slope down into a pedestrian space, hugging this this wall here. And to be honest, I could probably bring this wall forward so it is right up against that road, which might not be a bad idea, but we'll do it a little bit later on. And then what we can do is bring this road down, so that's all connected together. Bring this one back, because that's a little bit too far forward. And now I need to figure out where the theater is going to go, because the theater is this building here. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite buildings in City Skylines. It looks amazing. It has such a nice and just the perfect amount of detail to it. But I don't just want to throw it in here and surround it with buildings. So what I'm thinking I might do is continue this avenue, maybe about, let's say 12 units. And then if I hold control, I can snap my angles to multiples of 5. And if I go for 135 there, that inner angle is going to be, it's not 45 degrees, but essentially it's going to work, right? It's 45 degrees more than 90 degrees, so this is going to work for what I want to do. So if I go 12 units there and then I go 135 here, that is, it's not a right angle turn, but hopefully you get what I mean. But if I do this, right, it means that what I could do is bring this out by 20 units and bring this guy out by 20 units and go across like this. And then the theater could go right about there, right in the middle of that space, right on the water. And I think that looks really cool. I actually really like that. So let's grab all these nodes. Let's get them flattened to this height. Ooh, that's not going to be good for the theater, but that's okay. And then what we can do, I suppose, is we can put some keys around this, and we can have keys sort of hug this whole space. And actually, I almost wonder if we should bring the water in a little bit. So let's go and get some keys. Let's use a different one this time. Let's use the simple seawall, which doesn't have these white stone details. It's a little bit more old-fashioned looking. And what I want to do is I want this to be right about here, right outside the where the zoning would be. So it's going to go to there, and this side's going to sort of be the same thing. So it's going to go, I think, right about here. That might be a little bit too far out. Let's, I think that's about right there. So what we'll do is just line it up like this. We'll go and redo this one just to get it right. So it needs to go in a little bit more to about there. So that's 10 on either side. We can go and line up these guys, and then we can get the corners on there, which is going to be lovely and curved. And if I just go and grab all of the nodes again, I can level that to this height, and that looks pretty good. I mean, obviously there's some problems with water right now, so it's not exactly what we're looking for, but I think that looks pretty good. But my thinking with this is, what if we did this slightly differently? What if we brought, this guy over, and then, the zoning on that road's a bit weird, isn't it? Okay, well, that's something we can work with. But what if we did something like... I don't know how well this is necessarily going to work. But what if we did, I don't know, this, and then brought this over, and we grab this guy and just push it right into that wall. And that's the idea. This has been the idea the whole time, is I'm just going to push this key right into the wall. It's not going to connect to it. It's going to be a very, very hard stop. And then we bring this water back, and we just have a little space. It doesn't necessarily make sense. We could just continue this over, and everything would be okay. But I think this looks more interesting, right? I think this just looks a bit more weird. And that's kind of what I want. I want something that's not just a straight coastline this time. So let's push all of this this land back, and let's see what this looks like once we fill in the space and actually get a good look at, you know, what it's supposed to look like. And so now we have something that just looks a bit different from above. It just completely changes the shape of the coastline. It creates a pedestal for the theater, and that's kind of what I'm looking for in this space. Although I will say, I don't know how popular these right-angle corners are going to be on the keys, but to be honest, these are something I didn't even know I could do, but it turns out that you sort of can, and it's, I don't know if it's necessarily intentional or if it's sort of a glitch gone right, but essentially the way those work is you go into node controller and you click a corner, and if I just bring this point forward and this point forward, we get a right angle on the corner there, and I just think it's nice. I think it's kind of cool. I am going to keep this one a bit of a curve because it sort of matches this, and I think it would be a bit too much to have a right angle corner there, but I thought it actually looked kind of good for the space around the theater. So that's what we've gone for, and at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start painting the space in around the theater with some concrete, because this is essentially going to be a space that has plazas and things like that. It also has parking behind it, which makes me think that maybe we should do a road that goes across here, maybe some kind of small bluestone pedestrian street with trees or trees down the sides. We can take a look and see what it would look like, and I don't think the trees are the right call. I will say that. I think maybe the grass at the sides would be a good call. No, even the grass is maybe a bit much. I think we just do that. And now here's the annoying thing. Looking at the material for the theater almost has me tempted to say that we switch this space out for sandstone, because it kind of matches. It does. It also contrasts the concrete that we're going to put down here. I'm actually not too sure on that one. I'll leave that up to you. Let me know in the comments. Do we want to go for the sandstone or the bluestone? We'll stick with bluestone for now, just because we've used sandstone up here already, and we're using cobblestone over in Vermont District. But let me know if you think bluestone or sandstone would look better around this theater, and we can switch it out in a future episode based on what you think, if you think it would look better. I'm also realizing that there's two lights right there, and I kind of want to fix that, so let's just bring you back across here, and it still has two lights right there, which is kind of weird. Did that fix it? I mean, it's made it symmetrical. There's two lights at this end now, so I guess we'll go for that. That's, having symmetry is better than asymmetry, so that's what we'll do. Now, before we get into detailing this space, I want to figure out what to do with this space, because there are other unique buildings we could put in here. We have things like the government offices, which would look interesting. They do look old, which is a good thing. But we also have things like Amsterdam Palace, which actually I don't hate. I'm looking at that though and thinking it should be down on the water. But there's that as well. What else have we got in here that we could play with? Because I know there's other things that would look really good down here. I'm also thinking that maybe the city arch would be good right at the entrance of this space. And actually, I do like that. So I'm gonna keep that. I don't know, it might not live right there, but we're gonna keep that. We do have plenty of, plazas to play with, but there's one building in, the clock tower. We 100% need this down here. Again, I'm not 100% sure where. Maybe down at the water here, but that 100% needs to go somewhere. What I'm looking for is not the courthouse. It's a little bit too big and too bright, but specifically this guy, the academic library. Now, this building is huge, but it kind of looks interesting down here. It's kind of a good looking space. So I'm slightly tempted by that. The only problem is obviously these roads at the back of it are not the neatest, but I don't hate the idea of having the academic library down here. It just seems like an interesting combination though, and not in a good way necessarily. It's a library and a theater. So maybe that's too much as well. Now, while I want this district to be relatively historic, I do figure putting something like the London Eye into the middle of this makes it interesting. I think if you imagine being on the London Eye in this space, it would be quite the view. You obviously start right down in there. You don't really see a whole lot, but as the eye climbs up to its, what would you call it, the apex? I don't know, the top, essentially, you are suddenly going to be getting this view across quite a major section of the city. So I think as much as the London Eye is considerably more modern than everything else down here, I think it sort of works, and I think it's kind of nice, and it's obviously going to attract tourists, which is what we want for this space. We want people getting the metro here, which they can do. There is a metro station in the middle of the district now, and it is connected to the blue line. So you can get on a train here and go to Cedar Hall. You can go all the way to Jones Park, to Dale Hills, and right over to the hub in Vermont District. So this is now connected to a lot of things, and I think it looks pretty decent. Now, obviously, it still needs detail. It still needs trees, and we still need to make this place look a lot more pedestrianized than it does right now, and that's essentially going to be the next step. So let's go in and take a look at what plazas we have, because we do want this space to be something that people can enjoy. And I think, for example, a small food truck plaza right there would be good. I think a small ice cream truck plaza right there would be good as well. And then with some detailing around these, we can make it look a little bit less... the ice cream truck plaza, I've got to be honest, the bright yellow is cool and all, but it is also a little bit much. This one right here, I like because it's a little bit more subtle, and I might actually just do 2 food truck plazas. I think the ice cream truck one is just a little too much. It's a little too bright. It's a little... It's just a bit too much. I think this looks much better. So we'll go for 2 food truck plazas, sort of at either end of the London Eye. And that again gives us some green space that we can put some trees in and we can decorate really nicely. But this space back here, I'm not really too sure what it should be. We do have things like the small fountain plaza. We have things like the large fountain plaza. But I feel like I need to rotate that to a 45-degree angle for it to sort of work in this space, unless I just build another one on top, in which case I actually don't hate that. The lights being in the fountain is kind of weird, but also kind of not. If we could get it to be the same material, the bluestone, as the first one I put down there, does it... It doesn't actually clip. That's actually kind of cool. I actually don't hate that. And I kind of wonder, could I put the this is just for experimentation. Oh, we could put the clock tower back there actually. That might be a much better idea rather than this this plaza down here. I'm gonna have to keep this in mind though, because that's kind of cool. I do like that. But yeah, the clock tower is absolutely what we should be putting down here. And I mean, it's kind of weird having it that low down, isn't it? But you can also drive alongside and just look to the right, and there's the face of the clock tower. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just throwing things into the district and seeing what sticks. And I mean, this kind of works. I guess we'll commit to this. Let's flatten this out though, because I'm noticing some hills and things that I don't really need. So we'll grab buildings, nodes, and segments. We want to grab essentially everything, and I'm going to go from about here and just grab all of this. We'll actually just angle it slightly differently so I can grab it properly. Basically, all of this, we want to grab all of this, and we want to grab essentially all of this as well. And I just want to lower it to the height of that intersection, so everything's nice and flat now. And then I guess I just go in with decals, right? I guess we just go in here and lay out some of these stone decals. So if we go and search for, you know, decal, we have some options. I don't know, this is mid-century housing grass decal. What does it actually look like? It's just grass, isn't it? What is this? That's another grass decal. That's stone or gravel, or that's pebbles. I like that these exist. That's really cool that we actually have some pebble decals. But what I think I'm looking for is this, right? Yeah. Do I want the grass between all of this? Or is that a little silly looking? That's the real question now. I mean, if I do this, oh no. there's that graphics bug again. Okay. That's okay. We can deal with that. So we could do that, right? Or we could use these other, not the bright yellow one, but we could use some of these other decals just to make this space look a little bit more interesting. I think we have this decal as well, which is a base game, is also getting things weird. Okay, decals are going to make things weird in general. Let's use these ones rather than the old stones there. And I guess to stop the terrain from getting weird, I'm just going to paint it with a little bit of concrete. And now we come to the part of the video where I get to say that I have spent way too long building this district, but I'm actually really pleased with how this whole thing has turned out. I was a little worried about putting the London Eye in the middle of all of this, but when it's surrounded by the European buildings, when it's surrounded by decals of cobblestone and just cobbled stones, essentially. There's a couple of different types that we're using in here. When it's surrounded by these decals and these trees, these different food trucks and stalls and tables, when it has the clock behind it and the theater in front of it, while it is out of place, certainly, it also feels a little bit at home in the sense that maybe once upon a time this square was open for redevelopment and the London Eye, or a replica of the London Eye, won the bid for Nerdholm. Now, there are still some weird things going on around here, obviously, as we saw in Cedar Hall. anytime we place certain decals, the ground gets a bit weird, and that's what's going on with some of this. Some of this terrain weirdness is still because we are quite close to the water and the terrain has to recover. I think, pretty sure that's a thing in City Skylines, the terrain will eventually get back to normal, but some of it is very much because of this this glitch that we've been experiencing. You can see there, if I right-click and I hold it, it does clear up a little bit, and you can see sort of back here as well, we have this weird sort of terrain thing going on. That's essentially why this entire space has been covered. It's why I decided to build up here, and interestingly, it seems that the the road up here has gotten a little bit weird. Let me just fix this. That's a little bit weird. That's also not fixing the zoning. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. What's going on here? Why does it not want to put? Okay, doesn't want to put zoning in there. All right, let's smooth this out and see if this helps us a little bit in terms of actually giving us some zoning in there. And it does. Perfect. Okay, so we'll put some offices here. We have our service points here. Bunch of trees along the quay as well. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I moved the quay right up to the road on both sides here, so it looks that little bit better. And I also got a nice right angle going around this quay here and made this corner a little bit more shallow, so it's a little bit closer to this road down here. And to be quite honest, we could, if we really wanted to, just make that a little bit more shallow, so it's a little bit closer to that road. So the corners almost sort of touch right there, which I don't know if I love that. I don't know that I love that, but we'll keep it like that for now. It's okay. And it does nicely sort of surround the buildings down here, which, you know, the buildings themselves help to sort of hide the fact that there's just a big wall. So I am really pleased with the theater district, which is, you know, the name of it now. Rose Park, or Briar Rose Park, is what we'll call the space right here that has the London Eye, but we'll just refer to this as the theater district, which is very busy as well. There's a lot of people, 329 passengers last week through this little station. So I would imagine that, you know, this station here is probably quite busy. I would imagine that over here is potentially quite busy now as well, because we have a space for people to get on a train and go to an entertainment district that we never had before. And looking at it from above, I'm actually so pleased with that. I love that. I actually think that's so cool looking from up here. And I've got to be honest, this actually has me thinking that we really should build some kind of university down here. And I don't know that I'm going to get rid of Empire Hills and use this space for a university, because this island right here, I feel like we could use it for something in a university. So if we built a university kind of in this space, or if we got rid of Mayfair and turned it into a university district, we can kind of tie the history through all of this space. We could go in and use, I mean, I don't know which type of university we'd necessarily use. We've got the Liberal Arts College. We have the trade school admin building as well. I guess, honestly, it would probably be the actual university that would look the oldest. So we could use an actual university rather than a liberal arts college or a trade school, and we could build up this sort of historical university space. Essentially, we could build essentially another pedestrianized space that is an old education hub for the city, and we can have it be right against Oak Garden, and then maybe Empire Hills gets replaced with, I guess, Mill Park, right? I don't think Empire Hills is going to be the same as this. I think Empire Hills will probably be, well, maybe it should be European. Maybe we kind of have this band of European buildings as we get to the highway, and then as you get to the actual city center, it gets a little bit more modern. I'm not really too sure. I think what we'll do, though, just before we move towards wrapping things up for today, is I think we will go ahead and get rid of Mayfair, because, let's be honest, it is all low density anyway, except for the buildings that are right around here that I just recently replaced. So I think getting rid of Mayfair is probably fair enough. I'm going to keep the roads, obviously, that line Oak Garden, but yeah, I think this is probably a fair enough way to do things, is just get rid of this district, and we'll keep the metro for now. We'll let people sort of come and go that way if they really want to. It does connect down to Empire Hills as well, which I think is relatively important. Although I'm also slightly tempted to connect, well, there's no point connecting Empire Hills to Vermont because it's going to be gone soon. But I do think this space will probably get taken up by potentially another European district. It might be interesting to do it sort of not mirroring Dale Hills, but in the way that these buildings sort of go in that direction, maybe these buildings sort of go in that direction, and then we could have a university between, you know, Empire Hills, which I think is a good name for a residential space. We can have a university sort of in there, and in here, next to Empire Hills, the European-style residential district. So I think that's probably what we'll do. I do need to stay on top of money, which we're losing right now. I actually didn't check to see how much this district costs. It is 1,642, which is not actually all that bad. And in fairness, I could probably save a little bit of money if I was to go in and perhaps take the pedestrian zone away from about, let's see, from about there, and from about there as well. And if we just tidy this up, I can absolutely save a couple of $100. And there we go. It now costs 1,258 and is a little bit smaller and a little bit neater, which is good. That's what we're looking for. Now, like I said, I think Mayfair is gonna potentially turn into some kind of university space, but I do want your opinion on what kind of university we should go for. I'm leaning towards the actual university style stuff because it is quite, it's quite elegant, and I think it'll tie in nicely with the European style that we have going. But I want to know your opinion on it, and also if you have any university campuses either in real life or that you've seen in City Skylines or that you've built yourself. Let me know if you've got any sort of ideas for inspiration for a university campus here in Nerdholm. But with that said, it is that time once again when all that's left to say is that's going to do us for today. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.